Hi, this is the Tempter podcast where we explore the latest open source Linux and IoT technologies that enable innovative teams to build products better. Your hosts today are Kem Raj and Cliff Brake. Hey Kem, how's it going?
Going well. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, very well, thank you. So today we'd like to hear a little bit from Kem about the Embedded Open Source Summit that happened recently,
Yeah.
and he was there, so we just like to share some things that he learned there. So maybe to start us off, what kind of talks
Yeah.
or what all happened there?
Yeah. So I think, Embedded OSS Summit, so a little bit of history, we had like Embedded Linux Conference, ELC, as an independent event, and then it was merged into OSS, the open source summits, um, which happens twice a year, once in North America and once in Europe. In fall, and the spring one is in North America. But the number of talks grew so much, and so essentially it was um, again time to spin it individually. So it's called Embedded OSS Summit. But if you look at, it is basically I would think like similar kind of content that we had in ELC days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's co-hosted or co-located rather with few other conferences. So OSS Summit is basically part of it as well, and then there were some mini conferences as well that were happening. Either at the a day before the main conference or a day after the conference. Um, and Zephyr had actually a separate track, and they had a Zephyr mini summit as well that was ongoing there.
Okay. Is this the first time Zephyr would have been present at a conference like this, or?
Yeah, I think maybe they have been. I haven't really
Mm-hmm.
seen before, but I haven't been traveling so much into the conferences after the pandemic as much. So, but at least this was the first time when I noticed it in big way.
Sure. So in the past, we probably wouldn't have seen an MCU RTOS conference co-hosted with the Embedded Linux conference. So it's kind of a new thing
Yeah, so
to
it
have.
used to be more like there will be some talks submitted on like MCU programming and, the aspects of MCUs or, bare metal programming and microcontrollers and things like that. But they will be like, as part of the normal ELC schedule.
Mm-hmm. So the difference here, Zephyr was just a kind of a different track.
Hmm.
And from what I observed, there were a lot of Zephyr talks. I mean, were there as
Oh,
many
yeah.
Zephyr talks as Linux talks, or was it?
Yeah, good question. I think there were quite a bit of them, and there were keynotes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the keynotes was about Zephyr, actually, that Anas, who is one of the main contributor, presented on one of the keynote sessions. So, yeah, so there was more than before presence, and I think it's kind of gaining quite a bit of conference talks, if nothing else, I would say. So there's a lot
Sure.
of developer activity happening, I think.
Yeah. That's interesting to see. As we've discussed before in our podcast here, we've had good experiences with Zephyr, and we feel it's
Yeah.
good technology to look at moving forward.
Yeah, and I think so there was a showcase as well, and so different projects had their booths and they had their demos. Yocto project has their booth, and they have a few demos in there about EV charger. But next to us, or actually opposite to Yocto project, there was a Zephyr booth, and they had a bunch of demos in there as well. So so I'm seeing not only in the talks but also demos and other aspects of the project being present in the conference.
Were there any other talks that stood out or that you attended or you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I think there was a keynote on Zephyr where it's called "Zephyr is not a product,"
Hmm.
and I really like that because we have talked about platformization quite a lot on our podcast, and and in Yo and other things we are kind of aiming towards a similar concept. Um, so Zephyr, has grown as a project quite a bit, and now they are at a point where they are seeing this product versus project um, uh, pull and push, and there are several aspects of that. Those are growing pains, but they definitely are um, key milestones, and if you execute them well, that really help you scale into the next phase of a project life cycle. So I really like that that they are basically thinking about it. They're thinking about LTS release, so LTS, how to do LTS, because LTS has varied meanings depending upon who you are. And um, so there is that proposal that products would like to have some sort of LTS, but then should LTS have some development as well or not, or should it follow kernel model? And so there were like nice questions in there,
Mm-hmm.
and having been part of Yocto Project's LTS journey from inception, I related to that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then there were some talks on um, security, and so recent XG things and all. Everybody was talking about those, but I think this is a talk from Marta, and she actually talked about anti-patterns in systems from security point of view, and I thought that was really a good talk if you're considering security as part of your product development lifecycle or other aspects of it. So I think she also talks about a few good stories about what can happen if you don't do it. So it was really interesting talk.
Great. Yeah, we definitely.
And there was another talk I really enjoyed from um, um, so this is basically um, the talk was more about Rust. But then, when I attended the talk, the one good thing to learn about that was they were using Yocto as their base system to do their Rust development, and that was really good. And so it talks about if you're new to Rust, then what are the hassles or what are the learning curve you go through, and some aspects of Rust learning uh, that they went through, and then they recycled some of the concepts. So they were a CC++ um, project before. So I think the talk was from Memfault,
Mm-hmm.
and they were then moving to use Rust, for their new generation of the products. And I think there were like interesting things where they were not Rust developers to begin with, and how they kind of learn a totally new language and ecosystem, and then built a product from that. So that was a really good one.
Yeah. Did they share how Rust has benefited their efforts or?
Yeah, I think they basically didn't share. I mean, I didn't make much notes, and if they did, I have probably forgotten. But it was
Mm-hmm.
more about the development experience, and
Okay.
what to keep in mind. What are the challenges of Rust? Um, I
Sure.
think
More
they
of a
did share some benchmarks about size and things like that. So they were basically getting very similar size binaries to a C++ program and things like that.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting to learn about how new technologies are making their way.
Yeah.
into product development.
Hmm.
They're now practical, and yeah, yeah, exciting to see new options.
Yeah, and then I think there were a lot of talks on Zephyr actually. Various aspects of whether it's wearable devices or power management, and it felt like Zephyr is addressing um, a market space which is not like really deeply embedded like how MCUs were.
Hmm.
So I think the ecosystem is able to build relatively complex systems using Zephyr. So things like display devices and other kind of peripherals and everything.
Sure. Yeah, it's hitting that spot where people
Hmm.
want connected devices and reasonably power MCUs, but they don't want the full overhead of Linux. So that's
Yeah,
yeah, that's good. So anything else on the security front that stood out?
I think a lot of talks on um, hallway talks, I would say, around there. But I think one thing was clear that a lot of maintainers felt like they basically are in a spot of bother when it comes to security, and more help is always needed, right? And yeah, so I think that was pretty much around there. Quite a bit of interesting talks.
Sure,
Um, Another one I attended was from LWN. So it's nice survey of development, Linux kernel development. It's primarily kernel focused, and so it talks about various features that has been in the latest releases and what didn't make it, and it's a really good overview of what's happening in the kernel land,
hmm,
and it did touch about that Linux has basically gone on to only support the 2-year LTS and abandon the 4-year or 6-year LTSs, and primarily seeking again, like from security point of view, it's basically not possible for them to maintain several releases of that nature.
sure.
And
So
yeah, so
they're
a lot.
they're down to 2 years for the kernel LTS.
Mhm.
Okay, that's significant because many of the devices and products we work on have
Mhm.
5 or longer lifespans. So that basically means if you want to keep up with security, you
Mhm.
have to plan on updating your system and refreshing your software.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think some of the talks, there was a few talks on build systems, but I thought there were a lot more talks on like build systems in the past. But I think this was um, a there were good talks. So like building heterogeneous systems using Yocto project. It's just somebody from AMD um, that kind of like showcased like how you can build a complete system using Yocto project, and where you can have um, an application processor, you can have an MCU, and so different kind. It doesn't have to be just Linux, right? So you can build like a very complex system.
Hmm.
Um, and so that was really a good way to kind of showcase some advanced build system tools and techniques.
Yeah, that's really it's kind of the future. We have three aspects of systems. We have the real time part, which is the MCU.
Hmm.
We have the data intensive part, which is typically Linux,
Hmm.
and then we have this new area, the AI part, or the machine
Yeah.
learning. And a lot of the new process, or some of the new processors, like the IMX 93, have an AI accelerator, and other processors have that as well. So I see those as the three three parts of a modern system that you somehow need to get to work together. So
Yeah, yeah. I
it's
think it's going to be, yeah, a collection of systems that will form any system in future.
mhm.
So yeah, so I think it kind of like gives you a good setup, I would think, for developing applications for such systems. Because in the past, what you have done is you have basically um, done binary blobs for certain pieces, so they were like totally out of the system development done. And but I think that would change if you're like offering application development on those kind of systems. So
Sure. And that's one area we've tried to address in the past with simple IoT is the MCU slash
hmm
Linux integration,
hmm
and there's a lot more we can do there. But the AI is probably the next
yeah.
frontier that we need to address and learn more about.
hmm Yeah, and I think there were some BOFs as well. I attended the RISC-V uh, and RISE project BOF. So, it basically just talks about, brings like-minded people and talk about various things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, RISE is basically built around fueling the software ecosystem around RISC-V. Um, and so they are kind of like sprinkling across the system where RISC-V support is lacking or needs some help, or so they're trying to help in those areas. And that's really good if I look at that, because you have to like really find out your building blocks and then light fire underneath them so development can happen.
Sure. Yeah, lots going on. So, anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I think it was like there was some talk on security related again, because the NVD database went down, and some projects like downstream use their information because they would take CVEs and analyze them, add some information to them to qualify them, and then when that went down, so there is a little bit of upheaval there, saying who will do that. So um, I think there is a lot of um, activity around this, that projects themselves are now becoming caretakers of their own CVEs. So there's
Hmm.
a lot of times what happens is, kernel is actually one of them. So kernel has taken on that responsibility themselves now. So it won't be somebody else who is qualifying their security CVE entries. It will be themselves.
I see.
Ellipse has done the same, and I'm thinking that there will be more projects who would spend their own time in doing that. So that's a good thing in general.
Yeah, yeah. It's pulling the responsibility closer to where the project is, but it also means we now have more places we have to go check
hmm
for security problems. So, yeah, as I watch the whole security scene, it just really emphasizes in my mind the need to simplify
Mm.
where we
Yeah, I think.
can, because complexity is the enemy of simplicity or security. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely. Um, but I think it is best in open source because if you look at, the response time is phenomenal.
right. Mm-hmm.
So I think this is the best um, we have got to address these issues.
Sure. It's not perfect, but it's the best we have. So that's what we want to use.
Exactly. So I think there always will be security flaws, right? That will be discovered. It's how you respond, how quickly you respond to them, and then that will define it.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Yeah, that's a good point.
hmm So
Well,
yeah, I think
anything else or
yeah. So I think that was primarily what I had, and I also attended Tim Bird's talk on Linux in Space.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very interesting because he was emphasizing that some of these systems, they are working way over what they were expected to work, because
Mm-hmm.
there were a lot of engineering that went into them, and they have been still working, for many many years ever since. And so that was a good talk as well. It's basically emphasized on certain features of embedded Linux, that you usually probably only get to hear on embedded OSS conferences or nowhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't heard much about Linux in Space, so that does sound neat.
Mhm.
Especially if they've got systems that have run for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
That's a great accomplishment.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think it's a good conference in general. It's um, quite good talks, quality of talks, and if you're a developer or engineer, there's a lot of learning there that you can do, and networking is of course one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but you also get to see, what different projects are doing, and you get to meet people, from different communities, open source communities who are there. And overall, I think the vibe was pretty good. Given all the co-hosted events were there, I think there was a very good presence.
Very good. Yeah, I'm glad it was a good conference, and
Hmm.
appreciate you sharing some things and giving us some tips on things we might want to watch. I assume the videos and presentations will be online soon if they aren't already.
Yep.
So it's a good resource for all of us to
Yeah.
catch up on the latest. So
Hmm.
okay, well, we appreciate you listening, and if you have any feedback, please contact us. And thank you, Kim, for sharing. Until
Thank
next
you.
time.